everybody, this is Eric at Learn Design with Eric, and I just recorded a rant about school a minute ago. So if you've already seen that video, then you know what I'm talking about, but if not, you can watch the previous one, and it really has to do with that going to graphic design school is probably not the best use of your time and money anymore, so you might check that out. But what I'm going to talk about today is really just an opinion piece about why I switched after 6 years from Sketch to Adobe XD. So essentially what's going on is I work for a small business that designs marketing pieces, websites, basically the whole scope to help people grow their business. And that's what I do as my day job for now. And essentially I'm the lead designer, and so I have kind of purview over what kind of software we use and buy for the team. And one of the things that's been happening more and more lately is that we need to collaborate with a bunch of different team members. So it's myself, my production manager, the strategy team, which basically looks at the ads and creates the ads and makes sure that they're working well with the websites and that kind of thing. And so all of us are collaborating, and what we used to do when we were a really small business is literally everybody in the entire company would come down and stand behind my desk. I had a big standing desk with two big 27-inch monitors, and I would put the website up that I designed in Sketch, and we would just go through, I'd stage them, I'd say, you know, this site was designed for this client based on their expectation about they wanted a clean website that was fresh, modern, and classy. And these are their colors, and this is their logo, and these kinds of things I would say to stage them before I showed them anything. Because if you stage somebody about what they're gonna see, then they're gonna see what you tell them to see. It's basically, you're just kind of leading them into that. So that way you don't show it to them and then they're immediately thinking about other things and referencing and just kind of coming up with their own conclusions. So you're always better to stage people before you show them your designs, if you can, so that you can lead them to understand where you're coming from. Now, they still may want to change things, and that is their right as the client, but just so you know. Anyway, so we would look at the design, and I would go through the pages and just kind of talk through what I did, and then they would give me their edits. I'd make the edits, and then we'd send it to the developing team to develop the project. So that was kind of the way we did things back in 2013, 2014, 2015, and so on. Okay, that's how we did it. Now, I didn't use Sketch back in 2013 because I don't think it existed back then. But essentially, we did this same project. It was I would have designed it in Photoshop back then or whatever. But essentially, that's how we did things. And so, you know, fast forward to today. Okay, so we are all working from home. We have some of my strategy teams in Bend, Oregon, some of my production managers in Bend, Oregon. I'm in Eugene, Oregon. One of my salespeople's in Eugene. A couple of my salespeople is in Eugene. Another person's in Eugene that's on the strategy team. And then I got a bunch of people in Portland, a couple people in Vancouver. Anyway, let's just say we're all over the place, right? And we're all working from home. So this whole going down to the desk of the designer and all sitting there together in a room it's not a thing anymore. And, you know, just because of COVID and other stuff, but also just because of the way the company is expanding, right? We're getting talent from all over the place, and we're not requiring them to move to our place where our business is, which is great, right? Because I don't want to move to Portland. So, because we moved the office to Portland. So anyway, you know, the way that this works now, what I was doing was I was building the thing out in Sketch, and then I was sending a JPEG up to the cloud. I'd put it up on our Amazon web server, and then I would share those links out to the different people, and we would get together virtually using a Slack call, and I would kind of walk them through what they're seeing. Now, the problem with that is I couldn't stage them before they saw it, because oftentimes they would open the links as soon as they got the email, and that was usually, you know, an hour or two before the actual Slack call was scheduled, or even sometimes days before, depending on what happened with, you know, the scheduling. And so I didn't get to stage them, and so they'd already formed their own opinions before we even got on the Slack call, and it didn't work very well. And so one of the things that I really needed was a way to collaborate with the team kind of in a live fashion. So what we did was I started importing my sketch files into Figma, because Figma's got this really great web tool where I can send them the stuff. I don't have to send them the fonts and the assets because they're not linked, because it's like a web version of it. And pretty cool, right? The problem is that sometimes when I import it from Sketch, stuff would move around. So then I have to go through the Figma file and make sure that nothing moved around. And on a couple of projects I did, stuff moved so much that it kind of broke the design, so then I still had to go back and use a JPEG. Now, there's a lot of things like that that Sketch does. They're constantly updating, so I mean, maybe by now they're already doing some of that stuff in Sketch. Or I know there's about 1 million plugins in Sketch, and so some of this stuff can be done using plugins, but in any case, I wasn't doing that. I was just using Sketch the way I'd been using it for a bunch of years, you know, to build screen designs, pixel perfect screen designs. And there's a lot of things that I still really like about Sketch. The big downer is that whole collaborative element. It's not really well designed. And so I started looking at other software. In the course of hiring a new designer, I ended up talking to people about Figma and about XD and stuff because they were using those tools. And I hadn't really considered using something new, but I thought, well, maybe I should take the time to learn about both of these tools and see what I liked better about them. So Figma to me was not the user experience in Figma is weird. Like I learned Sketch in like a day. So I got Sketch and I learned it, like I got enough done with it the very first day I used it by just doing it, that I could do quite a bit. And then of course I took some training, I watched some videos online and learned how to do, using like lynda.com and Skillshare, I learned how to do more advanced stuff in Sketch, which was great. But, and so I could, you know, do a lot more things, do them quicker, be more efficient and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, going to Figma, I thought, well, I'm gonna see how Figma is before I go and take a bunch of training and just try to use it. And I just found that I just wasn't, the user experience for me was not good. Like I didn't like it at all. Like trying to just do some of the basic stuff, like literally putting a nav on and importing graphics and stuff, just was not as user friendly for me. Now, maybe if I took the time to like learn it, it could be, because I know there's people out there that just absolutely love Figma. So good for you if you do. But my experience was that I just didn't really get it. Like it didn't make sense for me. So I wanted to try Adobe XD. And so, because one of the things is that our company is a pretty small company. And so how many copies of Sketch we have at $99 a year, right? And I mean, we make plenty of money. So like 99 bucks a year is not really that big a deal for us. But you know, when it's 5 copies at 99 bucks a year, suddenly it's 500 bucks, you know, it starts to add up. And the thing is that we're already paying for Adobe Creative Suite for all these people. Because, well, myself and the designer and the web designer, we all need to have Photoshop so we can edit photos. I need to have Illustrator and InDesign and Premiere and all those types of software pieces. I need to have those anyway. And so we're already paying for Adobe XD. So that was the other thing. It was like a financial thing. I was thinking to myself, well, I'd rather spend the 500 bucks a year on new photo assets or new video assets or new training for the different people that we're hiring, because we're hiring new people all the time. And so I just started thinking about the fact that, you know, maybe I should take a look at this tool from a financial reason, if nothing else. And then the other thing, of course, is for me personally, I have a PC at home and my work computer that I use all day long at work is a Mac. And so on a Mac, I can use Sketch, but I cannot use Sketch on a Windows PC. And that to me is a big downer, because I like to use the same tools with both of my kind of things that I'm doing. I mean, I've got my work day that I love to do, and I work with my clients and I use all the tools we have there on the Mac, and I really like using the Mac. There's some things about the Mac that are amazing. But, you know, I don't have a problem with PC. I think PCs are great. And for the lion's share of people, you know, it used to be that Macs were the thing for designers, but I don't really think that's so much of an issue anymore, especially if you're using tools like Creative Suite, Adobe XD, and that kind of stuff, because honestly, Macs kind of missed the boat a little bit. I mean, for the price of a basic, if I got like a mid to high tier Mac to use for design work with like 32 gigs of RAM, a good sized hard drive to store all those assets and stuff, I mean, I've got like well over $2,500. just for the machine. And if I got a Mac Pro, like a top tier design machine, I mean, we're talking $6,000-$7,000 for a computer. Now in a PC, I can build a smoking fast PC for like under $3,000. Like insanely blistering fast with all the hard drive space. I mean, the computer that I'm using right now, I built in 2015. And it's still as fast as my work computer that I use. That's a brand new Mac Pro. So, just saying. Anyway, I digress. So Adobe XD can be used on the PC and on the Mac, and so that's another big plus for me. And then the other thing is that there's some really cool tools in Adobe XD to collaborate with different team members. So just the other day, we were on a video call on Slack, and I was sharing my screen, and we were in Adobe XD using the online sharing tool, and there's this little comment area on the side, and we were actually, they have this little pin, you just draw a pin, drop it on the thing you want to comment on, write your little note, and we were doing that all at the same time. We were talking about different things about the design we liked. We were reviewing one of the designs that one of the newer designers did. You know, really great design, but just some little tweaks we wanted to see, like, you know, some of the spacing between some of the phone numbers and buttons, and the button below was a little tight, and, you know, just little tweaks like that. And in the past, if we were standing around the desk, we could have said things like that, and I'd take notes and then I'd do the edits. But now that we're all over the place and we don't have that option, we have to do something together online, and being able to do that using those great online sharing tools and just make our comments, and everybody that looks at it can do the same thing, whether we're at the same time or not. Ideally, of course, you want to be able to be on so you can stage your project and talk about why you did things. But, you know, even if you can't, being able to just go in there and make those edits, and those people don't have to have the fonts, they don't have to have the assets. They're seeing kind of a live version of it. They can go through all the pages without having to have any of that software. Because none of the people that were on the call the other day, from one person from strategy and the one person from the production team, neither of them have Adobe XD. Neither of them have any of those fonts. Neither of them have any of those assets. And so it was really great being able to collaborate like that and be able to show them stuff without having to have all that stuff installed or have copies of Sketch, you know. And then the other thing that I really like, there's some little tools, like there's this really neat one where you can create one object, and oftentimes when you're designing a web page, you'll use a same type of object, like creating a grid, and you'll use it multiple times. So like I'll have an image that's the same size, a title, and some body copy, and I'll want that same look in 3 different spots next to each other, and then sometimes I'll use them further down the page as well. And so there's this neat grid tool that you just click a button and you drag it, and it just goes blink, blink, and it spaces them. And then you can space that, you can adjust that gap with this little tool. You just click it and just tighten it up. It is way cool. Like I used to do in Sketch, I used to drop down like a 5-star rating, and I would put, I actually had 5 stars on like this separate app that I would just drop them in. But in XD, you can just import, there's like an assets library. You just import a single star, and then you can use that same tool and just go whoop, and just make 5, and then you can compress them and you can scale them. Now, one of the things that I really like about Sketch that XD does not do as well is scaling like whole groups of assets. Sketch has this really cool tool with like percents, where you can scale it by a percent, or you can scale it by an actual size, like a written size. And that I really like, and so far XD does not do that. But I bet you it will. And to be completely honest, I don't do that nearly as much as I do stuff like a grid or repeating objects and things like that. So to me, it's like none of these tools are perfect. You know, Figma for me, I wasn't really a huge fan of, so I didn't even really look at that one. But when I'm comparing Sketch and Adobe XD, it was really like, which one has most of what I'm looking for? And there were some big things that Sketch does better than XD, but they weren't big enough to offset the things that XD does really, really well. And so for me, we switched. I mean, we just switched up. So I told my my software guy that gets all of our software and hardware and stuff, I told him, don't renew Sketch. We're not going to use it anymore. And one of the great things is, see, with Sketch, you can't import from XD, I don't think. I mean, I never tried it, okay? So maybe it does do it, but I can import anything from Sketch into XD, and from what I've seen, unlike the Figma situation, it imports really well. So like, it pulls it in pixel perfect. So, I mean, maybe sometime I'll run into an old file that doesn't import very well, and oh well, what am I gonna do? But, you know, for me, it was great because I have all these old files. I mean, you probably have hundreds of old files in Sketch that I'm gonna need to import, and it used to be that you had to have that software around. So like if you had an old Illustrator file and you wanted to open it in something else, you really can't do that. You gotta have a copy of Illustrator. And so there's always been kind of this issue in graphic design or any type of software. Like if you want to open an old docx file, you got to have, I mean, generally you got to have a copy of Word, right? I mean, you can at times open in some other softwares, but essentially that's the deal, right? You got to have the software to open it. But XD does a great job of opening old Sketch files, so I don't even need to have a copy of Sketch just to open anymore, which is pretty cool. And so for me, we switched, and I'm happy with it. Now, who knows what the future's gonna bring? Maybe Sketch will do amazing things. Maybe they'll release it on the PC so I can use it with my home business. Maybe they'll you know, add some of these collaborative features in a much more user-friendly way. Maybe they'll add the grid tool. I mean, who knows, right? They're competitive software pieces. They're gonna continue to iterate. Sketch updates like every other day, I swear. Every time I open up Sketch, I have a new version of Sketch to open with little bug fixes and little tweaks and little add-ons and stuff like that. And Adobe XD does not seem to update as often, but they're definitely listening to their community and making edits as they go, and they're doing a great job. I mean, I'm really happy with the software. It runs really great on my PC, runs really great on my Mac, and it's been really great to work with my team and be able to collaborate like that. So thanks Adobe for doing a great job once again with a great piece of software. And anyway, I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about my experience with Adobe XD. And maybe at some point in the future, in a future video, I'll actually show you me designing something in XD so you can kind of see how it works a little bit. And at some future point, if you guys really want me to, I can actually do like a full training course on how to use XD and, you know, what kinds of things to look for, and maybe a little bit of screen design tutorial and education while we're at it kind of thing as a class. So if you guys are interested in something like that, definitely leave a comment in the section below. Give me a like and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of this. And thanks so much. This is Eric at Learn Design with Eric.